Let's talk about inheritance in Kotlin. Now let's talk about inheritance in Kotlin. Inheritance is one of the key features of object-oriented programming. It allows user to create a new class from an existing class. The existing class is called the base class and the new class is called the derived class. The derived class inherits all the features from the base class and it can have additional features of its own as well. So for an example, let's say if you are creating a person class, or maybe if you are creating a vehicle class, a better example. So inside the vehicle class you can have not inside exactly, but if let's say let me write here, if base class is your vehicle, so you can have multiple derived classes that can inherit stuff from the vehicle class, like car, bus, truck, etc. All these are vehicles, right? So these can also be some classes which will be derived class of the base class, the parent class, right? So why inheritance is so important in programming or in general in this language as well. So suppose in your application you want 3 characters, a maths teacher, a footballer and a businessman. Since all of the characters are persons, they can walk and talk. However, they also have some special skills. A math teacher can teach maths, a footballer can play football, and a businessman can run business. You can individually create 3 classes who can walk, talk, and perform their special skill, right? Like math teacher, talk, walk, and teach math, footballer, talk, walk, and play football, and businessman, talk, walk, and run business. These 3 are the methods here. So in each of the classes you would be copying the same code to walk and talk for each character. If you want to add a new feature, eat, you need to implement the same code for each character once again, right? This can easily become error prone, while copying or while doing duplication of code, etc. It would be a lot easier if we had a person class with basic features of a person like walk, talk, eat, sleep, and so on. And apart from that, if there are any special function, if there are any special feature of any character, class, then you can add the extra function just in that class, right? This is done using inheritance. How? So this is now person class, the base class. It has the basic things that every person needs, like talk, walk, eat, sleep, and so on. Apart from that, you can have maths teacher class, play football class, run business, these maths teacher, footballer, businessman, these classes, and inside this you can have such method, teach math or run business, play football, etc. Basically what we are doing here is person is the base class, and all these maths teacher, footballer, and businessman, all these are the derived classes. So instead of implementing these functions in each and every class, math teacher, footballer, businessman, what I did, I created a single class, that's it. And every time you will create something, you can just inherit stuff from there, you can inherit these functions from there. So using inheritance, now you don't implement the same code, walk, talk, and eat for each class. You just need to inherit them, right? So for maths teacher, that is derived class, you inherit all features of person and you add a new feature, teach math. Similarly for a footballer as well, you inherit all the features of a person and add one more extra feature, play football. And same goes with the businessman class. This makes your code very clean and understandable and extendable as well. It's important to remember, when working with inheritance, each derived class should satisfy the condition whether it is a base class or not. In the above example, maths teacher is a person, every footballer is also a person. You cannot have something like businessman is a business, right? I mean, obviously the concept is clear here. When you are creating subclasses out of the base class, it's important to understand that while working with the inheritance, each derived class, like maths teacher, footballer, businessman, each derived class should satisfy the condition whether it is a base class or not, right? So here is the example. Person is the class here, and then basically we are writing the same thing in code as well. We have class person, and inside this we can have multiple function. Then we have class maths teacher, which is inheriting stuff from the person class. This is also inheriting, this is also inheriting. This is the syntax of inheritance. If you are creating a class XYZ and you want to inherit from class base, so you will write something like this, and then inside curly braces you can add extra stuff for XYZ, right? So notice the keyword open before the base class person. The keyword open here is important. It's important. By default, classes in Kotlin are final. Final means cannot be changed or are constant, right? If you are familiar with Java, you know that a final class cannot be subclassed. By using the open annotation on a class, compiler allows you to derive the new classes from it. So if I remove open keyword, so you cannot create or you cannot derive things from here. I mean, you cannot use it as base class. Okay, so you now know the significance of open keyword as well. So employee is one class. It is having name, age, salary as functions. Inside this you have some more classes, I mean some separate individual classes which are kind of deriving stuff, which are derived class of the employee base class. This is the base class here, and all these are the derived class. So these derived classes like web developer, Android developer and iOS developer, these derived classes will have all the features of the base class employee. They all will have name, age, salary, and apart from that, on top of that, they will have some special features of their own as well. Like web developer will know how to design website, they know how to design Android apps, and they know how to design iOS applications, right? So here is the example. You can take a screenshot of this as well. Let me tell you what we are trying to do here. So this is the main function T1. We are creating object of math teacher class. We are passing here 25 and Jack. Then I am saying T1 dot teach maths. So it will print I teach in primary class, right? I teach in primary class. And if you notice here, we are before that we have these two extra lines as well. My name is Jack and my age is 25. How and why it is coming, it's very important. It is coming because whenever you create object of this math teacher class, so obviously, I mean, alongside the math teacher, it is a derived class of this base class person, right? Of this base class person. So here as well, you are kind of passing 25 and Jack. And whenever the object of this class will be created, so obviously they have init block. And we know as soon as the object is created, the init block is executed. That's why we are printing this. And after that, we are printing whatever is written inside the math teacher class. So when the object T1 of math teacher class is created, when this is done, T1 object of math teacher class is created, the parameters are passed to the primary constructor. In Kotlin, init block is called when the object is created. I just told you. Since math teacher is derived from the person class, it looks for initializer block in the base class person and executes it, right? Since the math teacher is derived from the person class, it looks for initializer block in the base class. In the base class, it tries searching for the init block and it also executes it. If the math teacher had init block, the compiler would have also executed the init block of the derived class, right? Next, the teach maths function for object T1 is called using this statement. The program works similarly. When object F1 of footballer class is created, it will execute the init block of the base class, that is the person class, and after that the play football method is called using f1.playFootball. Same story is true here with this as well. If you create f1 object for footballer, then it will search for init block in the parent class. The parent class is person and the init block is this, right? So it will execute my name is this and my age is this, and after that we are calling f1.playFootball, right? So it's simple. It's just that you should know the theory part of it, right? If we are performing inheritance, then what is the order of calling which function when? If two init blocks are there, if the init block is in parent class as well as in the derived class, then init block of the parent class will be executed first, and after that the init block of the derived class will be executed, right? Important note for Kotlin inheritance: if the class has a primary constructor, the base must be initialized using the parameters of the primary constructor. So both derived classes have two parameters, age and name. So they are giving the they are explaining with the help of the example. So if you look at this example, f1 is the object. We are creating one object for footballer class, and footballer class is basically derived class of the person base class, right? Of the person base class, and footballer has init method of its own as well. So here the primary constructor of the derived class has three parameters. Primary constructor of the derived class has three parameters, right? Age, name and club. And the base class has two parameters, age and name. Note that both parameters of the base class are initialized. So when you will pass value for the footballer class, so this will also be initialized. Whatever value you are passing here, accordingly it will take values for the base class as well. In case of no primary constructor, each base class has to initialize the base or delegate to another constructor which does that. And here is an example of that again. Here they are using the concept of secondary constructor, and which once again is not heavily used in Kotlin, but you must know the significance of it, right? So if you look at the function main, we are creating p1 object for auth_log class, and we are passing here bad password, the value, right? The constructor. So here you can see we don't have any primary constructor. So in case of no primary constructor, each base class has to initialize the base using super keyword or delegate to another constructor which does that. So in this case, because no primary constructor was associated with auth_log, you can see in the constructor, in the secondary constructor, we are passing values, right? So that if we are giving values while creating the object, it can process it somehow, right? So by now you know the concept of inheritance as well, right? And now is the time we talk about Kotlin visibility modifiers as well. Earlier as well, you would have seen us using private, public, all those keywords, right? By default, all the variables, member functions inside a class are public, but yes, explicitly if you use private or protected keyword, then obviously they will behave that way. So visibility modifiers are keywords that set the visibility of classes, objects, interfaces, constructors, functions, properties and their setters. You cannot set visibility modifier of getters, as they always take the same visibility as that of the property. So these are visibility modifiers inside classes and interfaces. You can take a screenshot of this. Public, private, protected, internal. The words are somewhere self-explanatory. Public means visible to any client who can see the declaring class. Private means visible inside the class only. And protected means visible inside the class and its subclasses. And internal, visible to any client inside the module that can see the declaring class. Basically, you should have an overview of what these keywords are. And if you override a protected member in the derived class without specifying its visibility will also be protected. So yes, I hope all the concepts that we studied in this module are clear to you. We started with classes and objects, right, which are literally very important concepts in any programming language. We understood what are constructors, type of constructors in Kotlin, secondary and primary constructors, right? After that, we also understood the theory part of getters and setters, right? Getters and setters, late init, very significant keyword in Kotlin, late init in Kotlin. It is the keyword is self-explanatory, late init, whatever we want to initialize later, not immediately, right? So if you want to create a variable and you want to give it a value later on, you can use the late init keyword in the class. And apart from that, we talked about inheritance. We talked about inheritance in Kotlin, which is very much same as in any other programming language. And then visibility modifiers as well, visibility modifiers. So yes, I hope these concepts are clear to you. And in the coming classes, in the coming modules, we'll be creating some exciting projects as well using the Kotlin programming language, Kotlin standard libraries, and Android application development. Today, I'll teach you about this concept in Kotlin programming language. So let's get started. The very first thing is, and the very basic control flow is if else. So let's say if you are writing code and you have to print something, you have to perform a set of operation based on certain condition, like if XYZ is happening, then perform this piece of code. Let's say if it is raining, then print it is raining, or maybe show an image which tells the user that it is raining. So something like that, right? So it is completely based on condition. If something is happening, then perform these actions. Else, otherwise, if another action is happening, then perform other piece of execute other piece of code, etc. So if it is raining, take umbrella. Otherwise, no rains, you can enjoy your day. So if you have to write piece of code which are about these conditions and actions, then you can use if else. Now let's look at the syntax of if else. That's very easy. So this is the syntax of if else. If certain condition is true, then run this piece of code. Otherwise, else, you can run other piece of code, right? So it is very simple. If you want to write if else, you just have to do if this piece of code is correct, if this condition is correct, then execute this much line. Otherwise, else, you can execute this piece of code written over here, right? And you can put multiple conditions as well, like if this is true, then execute this. Then again you can put some condition, else if this is true, else if. You can keep on adding else if, and then in the end, if none of the conditions are true, then you can simply write one else block in which if none of the if conditions are true, then that will be executed. Perfect. Let's move on, and I want to quickly show you how you can write your code in this way if we want to use if else. So I'm using the same project that we created in the last module 1. Okay, new page, new file, and I want to name it if else, or you can name it control or something like that, control flow, anything, whatever you feel comfortable, you can name it that way. So I'm writing if else, and now what I will do is, once again, class if else, and what I will do here, like if you check at the main function that we wrote yesterday, so we had one function main, and inside that we simply did some print operation, we did increment and post increment, pre increment, etc. So today let's do one thing. I want to remove the class, and here I will write all the code. Okay, perfect. So I want to write here how if else works. So if I'll create one variable var animal. Okay, where animal. In the beginning I will pass empty string. Okay, and maybe I can ask the user as well to give some input, that if the animal is dog, cat, anything like that, you can right now predefine on yourself as well, right? So if I can check if animal is equal to, let's say, cat, then we can do print the animal is a cat, right? Else if animal is dog. So you can see it is giving me many hints that, hey Saumya, you can improve this piece of code or that piece of code, right? So I'll tell you, what hints it is giving us. The animal is a dog, right? That way you can go on and on, like depending upon the condition, depending upon the use case, you can add more and more conditions. So first thing here, it is saying that you can make this variable val, because the value is not getting modified in this project, in this piece of code, but it depends on me. I might change its value, so I want to keep it var. Okay, now if you see here, so it is saying that condition this is always false, because obviously animal is not is equal to cat, and here it will say it is always true. So let's try to print and see if it's working, if this piece of code is working. And you can see here we got the output. The animal is a dog, obviously, because the value of animal, the variable, is dog, right? If I write here cat, so obviously it will print the animal as a cat, right? So this is very, very simple. I just wanted to explain you the syntax of if else. This control flow syntax, if else syntax, is too easy. Okay, now let's get back to iPad. Let me do a screencast again. And here if you see, so there are some kind of rules which you should follow. They are not exactly rules, but a good programmer should always follow these standard rules and regulations, right? You should avoid cascading if else in Kotlin. Let's say if you have multiple conditions, like if animal is equal to this, then if animal is this, like let's say 5 to 6 if conditions are there, right? Depending upon the value of a variable, then you should use when instead of if else. So if you see here, if number is equal to 0, then they are printing 0. If number is 1, then 1, something like that, right? So instead you should use when keyword. When is a keyword in Kotlin, and instead of multiple cascading if else in Kotlin, you should prefer using when keyword. Perfect. So the syntax is something like this: when number is 0, then print 0. If number is 1, then print 1. Else you can print -1, right? It's so easy as compared to if else. In if else you were writing long piece of code. You were saying if number is equal to 0, then do this. So it's very, very easy as compared to if else, cascading if else. So you can be very you can simply write, I will tell you the syntax here as well. So when this condition is true, when this value is there, so you can be like, when x, let's say I have x variable, right? So if x is equal to 0, then perform this operation. If x is equal to 1, then perform this. If it's 2, then this. If it's minus, otherwise, like I can be like, if the value is completely different, else you can print any value here, right? So this is the syntax of when in Kotlin. And here they have decompiled the same concept in Java. So in Java, instead of when, we have switch. If you are coming from the Java background, you can relate to this very much. So basically, switch in Java is very, very similar to when in Kotlin. Perfect. I hope the concept is clear now. So in Java, we used to write something like this switch number. So here it will check the value of number. If it is 0, it will execute the case 0. If let's say it's 1, it will execute case 1, and it goes on, right? In the same way, we have the when keyword in Kotlin. It's a kind of switch in Kotlin. Okay, so you have switch in Java. So the same concept is implemented in Kotlin using the concept of when. Perfect. All right, awesome. So it's pretty much it. And moving ahead, now let's talk about loops. Loops are again very significant concept. I mean, if you have studied any object oriented programming language, you would have studied loops indeed. I'm pretty much sure about it. And the syntax is, the concept is very much same as in other languages. So if you already know any other language, it's going to be super duper simple for you. You will be like, okay, Saumya ma'am, like it's so easy, I can write the code before you even teach, right? It's literally that much easy. So yes, we just finished decision making. Like if you have to perform some operation based on some decision, you will be using if else. You can use when as well. And if you want to perform a set of operation multiple times, I'm repeating, in that case you use loops. The word loop is self-explanatory, right? If you have to execute a set of a statement multiple times, then in that case you have to use the concept of loops. For example, if you have to print hi developers 5 times, or if you have to print I am learning 10 times, then in that case you will use the concept of loops, because it doesn't make sense to write print ln hi developers 10 times like this, right? You can do the same thing. Instead of 10 lines, you can do this in 2 to 3 lines, right? So if obviously we want to be smart developers, right? We want to write code that takes less piece of code and less piece of lines. I mean, you want to do something in less number of lines of code. Like in Java, we used to write 7 to 8 to 10 lines for the same concept, but in Kotlin we are trying to squeezing it so that the developer experience is good overall, right? Perfect. So now the very first thing is Kotlin while loop. This is the syntax of while loop. While some text expression is true, then you keep on executing the code which is inside the body of the while loop. Okay. If you are a beginner in coding, obviously right now you'll be feeling like this is tough concept or something like that, but trust me, I mean, I'll tell you the like example and everything, it will become super duper simple for you. Okay, so here is an example of Kotlin while loop. Let's say you want to print something 5 times. They are printing some line, something like that, 5 times. Okay, so this is the function main. Okay, inside this we are going to write our code. So we created a variable where I is equal to 1, and then while I, that is this variable, is less than or is equal to 5, you have to keep on printing this thing. And every time you are inside the while loop, you are incrementing the value of I as well. So let's quickly do a dry run of this, and that will make the concept very easy for you to understand. Okay, so the very first thing, in the first iteration, what will happen? I is equal to 1, right? So in the first iteration it is 1. Here it will check while I is less than equal to 5, is 1 less than 5? Obviously. So I'll come inside this loop, I'll print line, and what is the value of I? It is 1, right? It is 1 right now. After that I will do plus I, that is the next time I will check like I did plus I, it is pre-increment, so the value of I now is I is equal to 2. So when I will again, after this I'll come again here, right? It will check, is 2 less than equal to 5? Yes, it is. So I'll come inside the while loop and I'll print line, the value of I right now is 2. Right now it is true. And then I'll after executing this, I'll execute this plus I. So now the value of I is 3. Plus I means I is equal to I plus 1, right? Basically I am incrementing the value of I, that's it. Now it is 3. I'll again go here. I'll check while I is less than equal to 5. Is 3 less than equal to 5? Obviously. So I'll come here. I'll print this line 3 and then plus plus I. Now the value is 4. I will again come here. Is 4 less than equal to 5? Obviously yes. So I'll print here line 4. Okay, and after that, after executing this, I'll increment the value of I will be now equal to 5, and again I will come here and I will check is 5 less than or equal to 5. Obviously it is equal to, so I'll come and execute this line. So it will be line 5 and then plus plus I. So now the value of I is equal to 6. I'll again check is 6 less than or equal to 5. No, the condition is now not true. So I'll come out of this while loop. I'll execute that line of code which is just after the while loop, right? That's it, you are done. So the output of this piece of code will be line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4 and line 5. To quickly check, let's write this piece of code in our editor as well. This is our Kotlin directory. I'll create here a new file and I'll call it, we were studying while loop, right? So I'll name it while, and I want to create a file. Okay, so function main, and after that, let me increase the size for you. Function main, and after that, inside the curly braces, I want to write the while loop, right? I want to write the code for while loop. So I just executed while loop. I used a very simple example, right? So let's say I want to use the same example that we had last time. Okay, you can use the concept of that animal thingy as well. So I want to teach you with the help of let's use this only concept, function main. So where I, or we can create any variable like a, b, c, anything. So in the starting, let's give it the value 1, and I want while a is less than or equal to 10. Okay, while a is less than or equal to 10, I want to perform some set of operation. The operation is I want to print something. Line is $a. Okay, so basically this is beauty of Kotlin. I mean, if you are under double quotes, right, if you are using a string and you want to print the value of a variable as it is, so you can use the dollar symbol. Okay, you can use the dollar symbol. So line is this, and after this I'll increment the value of a. That's it. Let's execute this piece of code and see if we did the execution correctly. And yes, we did. So line is 1, 2, 3. This is exactly how we executed this piece of code. So in that sample code, we were given 5, right? So now let's run it. Yes, this is exactly same as what we did, right? This is exactly same as what we wrote. And now let's get back to iPad. I'll screencast, and so I hope while is clear now, how while loops are written. The syntax is very simple. Okay, the syntax is very simple. Once again, I'm writing while this piece of code is correct, this piece of code is correct, this statement is true, this condition is true, you can execute whatever is written inside the while loop body. This is the body of while loop. Okay, so usually whenever we have some variables or something like that, let's say you want to execute some piece of code till it is true, right? I mean, let's say if you have a variable a and you want to execute it till it is less than or equal to 100, then you should have some, increment or decrement, some sort of expression here, maybe plus plus a or minus minus a, something like that. Otherwise there will be no end to the while loop. I mean, just imagine it, just do a dry run of this. It's very important if you want to understand some concept. No, it's important that you do a dry run of that. It helps you understand the concept in a very easy manner, in very clean and crisp manner. So after while loop, here is another example of while loop only. If you are writing a program to compute the sum of natural numbers from 1 to 100, so this is function main again, and inside this we have some piece of code, right? Some piece of code. So in the beginning, sum is equal to 0 and I is equal to 100. So they want to compute the sum of natural numbers from 1 to 100. So while I is not is equal to 0, what they are doing sum is equal to sum plus I, and every time it is inside the while loop, they are doing decrement. So this is shorthand, sum plus is equal to I. This exactly means sum is equal to sum plus I, okay? And then in the end they are printing the value of the sum. So if you try to do a dry run of this is exactly this will exactly do what we were doing in the last example of while loop. So let me give you one or two dry run of this. So in the beginning, sum is equal to 0, I is equal to 100, right? So next time it will come here, it will check is I not is equal to 0, meaning is 100 not is equal to 0. That's obviously true. So I'll come inside the while body, and now sum will be equal to sum plus I. So that is 0 plus 100 is equal to 100, and then minus I, so I is equal to 99, okay? Then next time I'll go here, I'll check is 99 not is equal to 0, obviously true. So I'll do here s is equal to sum plus I. So sum right now is 100 and I is 99, so it will do this summation, and then plus minus I, that is 98. So it will keep on doing this till the value of I becomes 0. So starting from 100, it will do it till I is not is equal to 0, right? Till I is equal to 1, it will do it. So we will get the sum of first 100 natural number from 1 to 100. We will get this sum. Perfect. Moving ahead, now we have another important thing. After while loop, we have do while loop. Okay, this is exactly same as while loop. There are few changes here and there. The do while loop is similar to while loop with one key difference. The body of do while loop is executed once before the text expression is checked. So you will understand this once you see the syntax of do while loop. So do this piece of action, execute this piece of code action, whatever is written inside this body of do while this text expression is true. So in while loop, what we were doing, we were checking the text expression before executing the body, right? Here we will execute the body first, and we will check the text expression if it is true or if it is not true later on, right? Here is an example of Kotlin do while. The program below calculates the sum of numbers entered by the user until the user enters 0. And to take the input from the user, we are using the readline function. The readline is inbuilt function, and with that we are taking the input from the user. Okay. Alright, so here if you see, this is the piece of code, right? So this is function main, and these are the arguments. This is the opening and closing braces for function main. So here we have a sum variable which is equal to 0. Then we have input variable which is of type string. So we are performing this piece of this set of action while input is not is equal to 0. So until the user will enter 0 as input, we have to perform this action. So we are printing enter an integer, then user will print it. We are getting the input in the input variable using readline function, okay? And then we are doing sum is equal to sum plus, we are converting the input into integer. So whatever input user will keep giving, we will keep adding it. Let's say if I enter 5, so 5 plus next time 10 plus 1, until I press 0, it will keep on adding. So in sum, what will I have at the end? I will have the value of all the input that the user has given, right? And then finally at the end I will be printing the value of the sum variable. So it's as easy and as simple as it looks. Let's quickly write do while loop so that it becomes clear. Okay, let me keep the iPad here, and we will write do while loop as well as while too. So while you have already seen how the concept of while is, right? So here we are testing the value before executing the piece of code, right? That is the only difference between while and do while. We write the text expression at the end in case of do while. Okay, perfect. So let's say I have a variable var index and the value is maybe 7. Okay, so I want to perform some action here, do something while a certain condition is true, while index is not equal to 0. Till then you have to perform some set of action. Okay, perform a set of action till, or you can say until, or while the value of index is not equal to 0. Okay, perfect. And that action can be anything, like you can just go on printing the value of index. Okay, so the value of index is dollar. I will use the dollar sign and then index, the variable. Perfect. And as I told you, in case of loops, we always have to deal with the values of the variable as well. If you are checking the value of index every time and in the beginning it is 7, so it's important that somewhere inside the body of the do while or the while loop you have some increment or decrement operation with that particular variable. So here the value is 7 and I want to print this line at every value of index, like 7, 6, 5 until it becomes 0. So what I will do here is I will simply do minus index. I have to decrement it. Okay, if I execute it, so you can see in the other piece of code, this one is also getting executed. Here in the beginning the value of index is 7, then the value of index is 6, 5, 4, 3, and it keeps on going, right? Perfect. And moving ahead, now let's check the other loop as well. So mainly there are 3 loops in any programming language. We have already checked while and do while, right? And now is the time that we check for loop as well. So the syntax for loop in Kotlin is again very simple. For is a keyword. Okay, for some item in collection, you can I'll teach you. I mean, this is the basic syntax for this piece of a statement. You have to execute these many lines of code. Okay, let's see some example and that will make it clear. So let's say you have to iterate through a range of values. Okay, through a range of value. So this is the main function. Inside this, for I that is in between 1 to 5, right? If the value of I is between 1 to 5, then go and keep on printing I. Okay, if the value of I will become, let's say, -1 or 0 or 7, 6, anything, then I will not execute this piece of code. Okay, in this case the value will be from 1 to 5. Okay, because obviously I'm telling it that, okay, if the value of I is between 1 to 5, we have the for loop here, and inside that we are telling that I is in this range, then only this piece of code will be executed, right? Perfect. And here is another example of for loop only. of for loop only. So we have a text Kotlin, okay? We have a text Kotlin. This is a string, right? This is of type string. So for every letter in the text, for every letter, like for Kotlin, what I'm doing is I am iterating over this string, over Kotlin. I am printing each and every value for letter in Kotlin, okay, letter in this text. So for the very first time it will have the value K, then it will have the value O, then T, L. I'm just printing it. So for loop is heavily used in iterating as well, iterating over a string, iterating over arrays and so on, okay. So let's quickly write for loop as well, so that the concept is very crisp and clear in your mind, okay. So here, let's say I have a variable, okay, where name is equal to a scalar, okay. And here what I will do is, for each text in name, I want to print it, okay. Print ln, I want to print this, whoops, each text. So if I run it, you can see SCA, the name is spelling is correct, and here you can see SCALER, okay. It is one by one printing the value of each character which is there in this given string, okay. In Java or in other languages, what we used to do, we used to do something like this. Like I have this habit of creating variable I is equal to 0, okay. And I mean, we used to learn for loop in this way only. I learned in the first language was C++, so I learned this way only, I is equal to 0. Or maybe you can initialize it here as well. Let's say, whoops, so where I is equal to 0 and till I is less than or equal to so basically the syntax won't be true for this Kotlin, right? Let's try it, okay. And then, so we used to have 3 kind of statements here, but this is not exactly how in Kotlin we do that. If you go and check on the net as well, the syntax of for loop in Kotlin, so you will see, I mean, earlier we used to do it this way. We used to have one initialization, then control, and then increment kind of variables. But in Kotlin, this is exactly how you do things. So if you look at the standard syntax of for loop in Kotlin, so as I told you, it is like this only. For, let's say you have an array of cars, right? This is a cars array, and I haven't yet taught the concept of array to you all, but in the coming modules, in the next topics, I'll teach about array as well. So let's say if you have a cars variable, that is array of Volvo, BMW, for these are some car names, right? So for X in car, for each car value, you are kind of going in the for loop and printing each and every value of the car, right? Whatever is there inside the array. Perfect. And let's now come back to iPad and I'll teach you some more concepts around it. So I hope by now you know the syntax of while loop, you know how to use do while loop, and as well as you know the concept of for loop, right? For loop is also very much straightforward. It's very, very simple, right? For each letter in this string, we can be like printing each, we can go on printing each letter, right? So it's as simple as it looks. So if else you already know now, and after that you have 3 main loops: while loop, do while, and the last one is for loop. There is a very small difference between while and do while loop. In while loop, you check the test condition in the beginning, and in do while, you test that condition at the end after executing the body of the do while loop. Perfect.